Hello everybody. Welcome to the SPRG Chatroom. We aim to use this platform to exchange ideas on current topics and trends. My name is Stefanie Braukmann, and I'm the General Manager of SPRG Malaysia, and I'm your host for today's session. I'm very glad that I have with me here today Mooreyameen Mohamed, Chief Sustainability Officer of PETRA Group. PETRA Group is a technology-based conglomerate, and it covers a wide range of sectors: sustainable technologies, infrastructure, food and beverage, media and entertainment, and that's just a few of their verticals. Our topic today is sustainability. Now, that's something a lot of people talk about, and many believe that all companies must embrace it. Yamin, maybe you could start by telling us a bit about why you think companies should embrace sustainability.
Hello, Stephanie. Thanks for having me. Sustainability is really a new buzzword, but it has been around for the longest time. If we're looking at some of the oldest businesses, they have already incorporated sustainability in their businesses without calling it sustainability. But these days, sustainability is a much bigger idea. I think one of the more sort of common understanding of sustainability is about the sustainability of resources and how we take care of our natural resources. And that's important. But business-wise, it's important for big and small businesses to embrace sustainability these days, because people really, really do care about our impact on the environment. We have seen, all the pictures of, wildlife being severely affected by our rubbish. We have seen how, deforestation has devastated natural habitat and so on. So it really is time for businesses to really take sustainability seriously in how they conduct their business.
Mm-hmm. So the first thought everybody has is when they hear sustainability is environment, but as you said, sustainability is actually more, and when we look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, that covers so many areas. So can you elaborate a little bit on how your role as Chief Sustainability Officer covers all of that?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the UN Sustainable Development Goals, because the United Nations have done an amazing job in defining all the different areas that sustainability could sort of be manifested. And although businesses not every business can sort of work towards achieving every one of those goals, but certainly there's easily more than one that would apply to almost any business around the world. In my role as the Chief Sustainability Officer of PETRA Group, we have a lot of businesses that are as you mentioned, we have a variety of businesses, but I think one of the areas that have the biggest impact on the environment in terms of using of resources is the manufacturing side, which is PETRA Modular. And PETRA Modular has done quite a bit of work in terms of sort of measuring the baseline use of resources and so on, and tracking that and making sure that they understand, first of all, what is the impact on the environment, what is the CO2 emissions, for example. There are lots of numbers that will help us to understand that. But also, more importantly, is actually taking the approach, or having the right attitude about knowing that we have an impact on the environment and constantly trying to reduce it in whatever ways we can. So for everybody, it is a learning curve. It's a sort of an open-minded learning approach that we are looking at sustainability, and we're constantly discovering new ways of being more sustainable, but also applying new technologies that could actually help us, save more on resources or do things more efficiently and so on.
So you're saying it's a learning curve, and it's not like everybody is getting it right or doing it completely. When we look, from our consultancy perspective, when we look at our clients, we have a lot of very big clients. When we look at their approach, it seems like they have a lot of experience already, and they have a lot of resources that they can put to it, and so it's easier for us to support them on their journey. But there are other companies, especially SMEs, they probably ask themselves, how should I start? How do you begin to establish sustainable practices, and how do you develop a sustainability policy and culture in your organization? Now, I know you do have some experience with that in the SME space. Maybe you could tell us about your experience.
Yeah, yes. So in the SMEs, I think you're right. I mean, SMEs generally do struggle a little bit when it comes to having extra resources in, what might seem to be optional to the bottom line. But in this day and age, sustainability is not optional anymore. It's a real competitive edge. So it's really quite important for SMEs to take sustainability seriously. And to do that, the first thing to remember is that you've got to have focus. You've got to have management support. The top management must realize that sustainability is critical, and you've got to put at least one person in charge of sustainability, making sure that that's full-time focus on whatever sustainability measures you're taking. And secondly, it can be intimidating, but start small, start somewhere, and constantly improve. And I think that's the thing that's important to remember, because it can be quite intimidating, it can be overwhelming, but there are a lot of resources around that help any company to make a difference. And just now you mentioned the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, and the United Nations have an amazing website that helps almost anyone who wants to do anything in terms of sustainability to start. So that's a great place. Lastly, and I just want to repeat that, it's my point earlier, is that keep an open mind, and be sort of positive, and sort of be open to learn new things every day, because it is an evolving topic, and maybe there are some big companies that got it down pat, but I think most people are still learning about sustainability, and that's not a bad thing. I think that learning journey is quite a good thing for everybody to get on.
Yeah. If I understand you correctly, your experience with this SME was with a company that already was in the sustainable space. It was a recycling business, right? So from that side, probably they had already a very big passion for sustainability. But can you perhaps give us a little bit of concrete examples? What was it that made it that you had to do there to turn the whole company into a sustainable business? Or what kind of challenges did you face? Or what did they actually do to get everybody on board? Like some concrete examples.
Yeah, so the company that I was working for was a plastic recycling company, so you could argue that, hey, the whole business is sustainable. But at the end, when I first joined, it was essentially a manufacturing company. They basically converted one form of material into another, and they didn't really think about, the business as a form of, sustainable business. But to make it sustainable, it was also about telling, number one, the product was easy for us to market as a sustainable product because it's a recycled product. So that was not too difficult. But I think more importantly, some of the changes that we made were looking at the whole business internally and making sure that our practices were sustainable, and that included making sure that all the employees had a voice in terms of how the manufacturing facility was being managed, that our migrant workers were treated well and had all the resources that they needed to do their job properly, and having put in place all the necessary measures, we actually invited auditors to come in and tell us whether we're on the right track for everything. And this was a huge, huge step for the company because as an SME, they're not really used to opening up the factory to such scrutiny. But it was important that we went through that process because it was something that we could really learn from, to get the feedback from auditors and to tell us, okay, this is great or this is not, and what you can do to improve is such a huge step in making that journey towards being a truly sustainable business. So I think that's really important. One of the auditors, or one of the standards that we were audited against, is called CDEX, and that is a standard that was developed in the UK. It's been around for a while. I think a lot of big companies already apply it. A lot of smaller companies tend not to pay too much attention to it, but it really is a very, very comprehensive sort of set of standards, and not easy for small companies to follow, but we made sure that we went through that path anyway, and I'm very proud to say that the company is doing very well. So yeah, I hope that's a good example for you.
Yeah, that's a good example to show that also small and medium-sized companies can actually do it and can be even certified afterwards. And I think that will also help them to communicate with their stakeholders afterwards. What would be your advice to companies of a similar size who are looking to start their sustainable journey? Where to start? What would be the first step?
I think appointing a sustainability manager would be the first step, actually. As I said, it needs focus, and it's not something that you can do sort of 10% of your time or 15% of your time. Sustainability I think, has evolved from what we used to refer to as CSR, and corporate social responsibility, and this is much bigger than that, and it covers everything that we touch, and everyone that we come into contact as well. So having a person to fully focus on sustainability is a great start, and that person will then need to be able to acquire the knowledge, and understand the business and understand how the business has impact on the environment, on our stakeholders, on vendors, on customers, and so on, and be able to sort of report back to management and say what are the changes that they need to be done, or what are the positive activities that need to be reinforced within a company. And that takes a lot of work, that takes a lot of focus. So I think a good start would be to have a person at least to focus on sustainability.
Yeah, that would have been my next question, actually, because that role I also usually see in client organizations that are bigger. I haven't found that role among some of our smaller clients. So, and that's what makes it perhaps difficult for them, because then either they give that job to maybe even their corporate communications department to take care of sustainability. And I think it's just a much too big a task. So maybe that's why they don't really dare to fully embrace it. But let's talk about your current role for a moment. So you're now in a much bigger group, and you have many different types of activities and businesses, and some are in a sustainable area already. They have a product that is environmentally friendly, or they already contribute to sustainability. But how do you approach your role there as CSO with such a diverse company?
Well, I'm going to have to be quite careful that I don't trample all over the company saying that, oh, we've got to be sustainable and let's stop doing this and stop doing that. So I think the important thing is that we have, as I said before, a sustainable attitude in terms of how we approach our business. So whatever we do, we've got to ask ourselves that question: is what we're doing right now a sustainable activity? Can we do it with less resources? Can we do it with sort of less adverse impact on anything or anyone that we're affecting? Let's ask that question all the time and see if there's anything that we can improve. And so that's number one. Number two, it's really important to track. If you want to make any sort of impact on the business, it's very important to track the sort of changes that you've made, or some sort of metrics that you create, so that you can see the sort of improvement you can make over time. So these are more sort of general attitudes, but there are certainly a lot of very concrete stuff that we can immediately measure and improve on. So use of paper in the office, use of electricity in the office. They're easily trackable because we've got bills coming in every month. How do we make our impact smaller in terms of using of resources and so on? So, like I said, on the manufacturing side, it's probably easier because there's a lot more resources that are being used. But certainly in other parts of the business, we are not using some resources as well, and that's certainly something that we can look at. Are we recycling? Are we reusing stuff? Are we, disposing of batteries, for example, properly? So these are all they may be small, but they can add up. Don't forget, we're an organization of about 100 people. If everybody threw away a battery a month, that's quite a lot of batteries that's going to potentially leak mercury into the environment. So, small things can add up, and I think that's something that we need to really pay attention on. So I'm happy to start small and then go bigger, because I want whatever changes that are being made to last, and also for everyone to adopt the same attitude about sustainability, and not just say, okay, well, this is something that someone else is doing. So I think it's important to do it right from the beginning.
Yeah, so I hear you say it's actually the first thing has to be the mindset, the right mindset, and then you take all these small steps so people can really get used to it and understand that it is a very comprehensive concept, and then you do it step by step. So I think that takes a little bit of the pressure off. I also like the fact that you say everything has to be measurable. I think even if you look into the bigger picture, that some companies are measured by, for example, investors, or by, if they want to take a loan, banks are looking at the sustainability record of companies. So obviously you have to have something to prove that you're really doing it. But you don't have to put yourself under pressure. So do you have like a time frame that you've set yourself, or is it just you take it as it comes?
I'd like to set myself, or I think it'd be a good New Year resolution for me to have for next year. But I'd certainly like to give myself next 6 months to set a baseline for where we are at the moment, and then from there measure some of the key metrics that we have in the company, and so start maybe a basic skeleton of a sustainability report that we can eventually share with our stakeholders, and including perhaps our customers outside. So that's kind of a target I'm setting for myself.
I have just a slightly different topic here. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen pictures around, not only on the internet, also in most media, that seemed to be like a reprieve for nature, coming from the fact that there was just less industrial activity, less traffic on the roads, and so that looked quite good. But at the same time, there is now a lot of concern that with the growing pressures, the economic and financial pressures, environmental concerns will just be put on the back burner again. How do you see this play out?
I think, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because that was a good It was a good surprise for everybody, I think, to see that nature had the ability to bounce back so quickly the moment we kind of stopped our, human activities, and it sort of gave everybody a bit of faith that, well, if we could just change our behavior, nature could reset and fix itself. But that maybe that's a highly optimistic view of giving ourselves an excuse that, hey, if nature can bounce back so easily, we have a bit more time, maybe the world wouldn't end so soon after all. But I think it's important to remember that, okay, COVID is actually a reminder for us that life is quite fragile, and if it's not COVID, it could be something else. Life for human beings, or the human race, and we need to. I think it's a chance for us to rethink how we really take care of ourselves, not just our resources, but our world and ourselves in terms of how we treat each other, how we treat the people who work for us. And you've seen in the news as well that a lot of the outbreaks have come from over-congested living areas with migrant workers and all that. So, and it's forcing governments and organizations and businesses to relook at how they house people, lots of people in a small area, and that is not something that that's something that a lot of businesses have been trying to avoid for a while, and it's not something that's easily talked about, but I think this COVID situation has forced the conversation onto the table, and everybody's got to look at that now seriously. And I think while there are some issues that are perhaps easier to handle, saying, hey, you know what, if nature can bounce back so easily, let's take nature reserves area more seriously now. Let's stop cutting them down. But there are also other issues that are more complicated, like how do we still manufacture or produce things in a low-cost manner, when we have to now provide a lot better facilities for workers and so on. And I think that's a much harder question, but it's a good time for businesses to ask themselves and say, how can we do things better?
Yeah, I think you emphasize that there is actually some real positive outcomes of the pandemic for nature, for environment, and for sustainability, and also for companies that want to do the right thing. I hope that we will not just get pressured too much into money comes first, because everybody is so concerned that their economies are now down. So they might just loosen up regulations so that companies can freely manufacture. That's actually one big concern. I know also your chairman, Dr. Vinod Shekhar, has actually talked about in an article, and I think that's where some industries, particularly those that are considered polluting, were actually asked to not abandon all their good habits now. So I hope on that good note that we will see more sustainability. Before we conclude, Yamin, can you perhaps just share your top 3 tips of how companies can really make a difference by becoming more sustainable? Maybe 3 things.
Well, okay, thanks for that. You're putting me on the spot here, but I think the important thing is that everyone can make a difference in terms of sustainability. So I hate to use the word leadership because it sounds like such a big word that applies to U.S. presidents and whatnot. But if you think about the household, for example, everyone can play a role in being more sustainable. Even just cleaning your plastic containers before you put it in a bin, it makes it easier for recyclers to recycle the plastic, separating your waste. These are small things that can be done, and everybody can do something somewhere personally to make a difference in being sustainable. Secondly, is to get yourself educated. I think sustainability is such a huge topic, and it's very, very interesting, but also to sort of, once you get yourself educated, you get into the frame of mind of how to be more sustainable in all sorts of ways. So that we need more creative ideas in sustainability. And thirdly, you mentioned just now that a lot of businesses are looking at money coming first. I think now the sort of idea is that money isn't everything, and there are certain things that money cannot buy. So, it's good to take note of that and say, what are we doing here? And is there something else that we can do? Is there something else that we can achieve that isn't financially measurable? So I'll leave these with you, these 3 tips.
Well, these are great tips. So basically, everybody has to be a leader in this, and everybody can do something. I love that. And also, of course, we all need to learn more. And well, I leave it on that note then. I mean, that's very insightful.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for sharing, and have a good day.
You too. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.